Welcome to the Body and Beyond podcast with Alice and Gina,
a podcast sparking discussion on all things health, mindset, fitness, goals, and motivation.
We strive to help you to boost your confidence, to take the lead in your own life, to back yourself, and to step into your full potential. Body and Beyond is proudly sponsored by The Seed Cycle. The Seed Cycle is a beautiful female-founded Australian company. Seed cycling is a natural methodology that you can use to support your menstruation and your ovulation, and it can even be used to support your hormones through perimenopause and menopause. Use the code BODY and BEYOND at the Seed Cycle website www.theseedcycle.com.au. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Body and Beyond podcast with Alice and Gina. Today, we have a very special guest, don't we, Alice?
We do, and it's going to be a very juicy episode, something a little bit different to what we've done. Oh, I don't think we've done anything on this topic so far.
No, it is going to be juicy.
So we have Steph Mellick with us today. And Steph is a qualified personal trainer and an accountant, my accountant too, by the way. She is also a student of counseling, psychotherapy, and sexology, which is going to be what we are focusing on today. So welcome, Steph. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I'm just honored to be here. These are topics that I could just talk about days about. So I'm thrilled that anyone's interested in what I have to say. Thank you so much. I am, like you said, I'm an accountant. I've been in the industry for the last 15 years. Makes me sound old. I've started my own practice about five years ago, and I'm still involved in that practice. But I'm actually starting to move back a little bit to make way for study and moving into this sexology space. And I'll probably go into a little bit about why that's happening in a little bit later, because it might seem like a pretty dramatic move to go from tax and accounting to wanting to be a sex therapist.
Yeah, that would be an interesting story, I feel. So the topic for today is how our libido is the barometer for our mental, physical, and spiritual health. Tell us more.
Absolutely. Well, I guess my overarching sort of philosophy in what I'm studying and my own sort of lived experience is that we, generally speaking, we've got this taboo and this sort of shroud around the conversation of sexuality, yet we are innately sexual beings, and it's just a key part of being human. It really is. It's like breathing. It's like anything else, although it just looks different for all of us. And there's very much a symbiotic relationship and an interconnectedness between, our physical, our emotional, our mental, our spiritual, and our sexual health. So where one part isn't congruent, it will permeate through all the rest. On the flip side, where something's really strong, you'll probably see that improve all the other parts in our lives. And I think sometimes we have a tendency to compartmentalize sexuality away from maybe all the other arenas. And I think that's maybe a bit misguided. It has to start to be part of the whole picture.
So what drew you to starting to lean into this study and start to go down this path?
For me, my sort of journey and my lesson, and it'll probably be a lifelong lesson, has been that of authenticity. For a long, don't get me wrong, I love the accounting industry. It's served me really well, but I look back at my corporate days and how much I hated being in that environment and how I just felt like a square peg in a round hole. And I just knew something wasn't right, but I could never pinpoint what it was. But all I knew was my favorite part of the job was connecting with clients and the relationships with clients. And I always ended up having, it'd be 2 minutes of conversation about what I was there to talk about, and the rest of it would be goodness knows what. We'd end up talking about sex lives, relationships, death, existentialism, sort of anything. like that. And I think the big circuit breaker for me, where it's all sort of started to click, was the birth of my son about 2.5 years ago. And I thought, well, what do I really, really want for him? And that's to live a truly authentic life. And I thought, but I can't just tell him that. I can't just tell him to do that. I have to lead by example. So that really led me to look at all parts of my life. Where am I not being congruent? Where am I where is my inner self not the same as the self I'm bringing out to the world? And then strangely, the one part of my life that has always been super congruent, that I've never had any inhibitions in, has actually been in my sexuality. So that's where the journey started. And then it moved into a huge other story of spiritual growth, personal development. But it just started there for me. And it sort of really showed me the interconnectedness of all these things that we're about to talk about. And that's what sort of has led me down that path, if that makes sense.
It does. When you, like, in your studies, I'm assuming, I mean, I don't know, but do you sort of come across scenarios where you think about possible sort of scenarios where this doesn't happen for women? Like, could you give an example of not being authentic or not being connected through physical or spiritual health as a result of not being connected with your sexuality? That makes sense?
Absolutely. I mean, there's lots, but I think the number one thing it all comes back to is a loss or lack of desire. That's where it comes up time and time again. And it's normally the number one reason why a person or a couple will see a sex therapist. It's that loss of desire. And that's and then that comes back to that spirituality. There's something incongruent between our thoughts, our behaviors, and our beliefs. Because if we're not feeling safe, if we're not feeling comfortable, how can we express ourselves that way? And that how that looks, could be for a multitude of reasons. For women, it could be, physical issues, trauma, problems in relationship, just some inner work that needs to be done. That lack of desire could come from a multitude of places, but that's normally where it often presents itself. Yeah.
Do you think I imagine you would, do you think there's much correlation between how, I guess, busy and stressed the general population is, and almost like women operating more in their masculine rather than their feminine, and how that could impact desire and being able to relax and all those kind of things?
1,000%. I think stress and burnout, we're all so busy, we're all juggling so many things. That can be a huge contributing factor, because, I mean, the biggest, it all starts with connection to ourselves. That's where our sexuality starts. And it's doing the basics. It almost sounds so obvious. It's like, yeah, right, that can't be it. But it's the basics. It's whatever lights you up. Painting, art, gym, cooking, whatever that is. I mean, I always go back to, like, I myself have trained in the gym for years and years and years, and Alice, this is probably something you can relate to. I imagine the reason you started training versus the reason you continue to train is very different.
This is true. Yeah.
So I know for me, I wanted to look better, but I train now because it makes me feel good. It puts me in my power. I think the steps that we go through to first connect to ourselves is we have to feel turned on about our lives, about what's happening in ourselves. And that means we're connected to our true authentic selves. We're then in our power. And from that place, we can have an amazing sexual experience. And that could be with a one-night stand or a long-term partner. It could be anybody. But if we're not fully in that, it's really hard to have an awesome sexual life experience.
I love what you said about the basics, but that being
It
individual to the person, like what lights you up, and that's going to be a different answer for everyone.
Absolutely. And it sounds so obvious, it just can't possibly be true. But it really is. And I guess, you know, I'll hear things like, oh, my relationship's really good except for the sex. So it's like, oh, we just fix this little sex bit and then everything will be fine. Whereas it's like, well, no, that's actually a reflection of something greater that's happening within the relationship or within a person. It might not be the relationship, it might be something that's happening just for that person that they have to deal with. And I kind of think of like the flip side, like my last 15 years in business, I would hear it as people saying to me, oh, my business is amazing, we just got a bit of a cash flow issue. If we just had a bit more cash flow, we'd be right. You're like, no, your cash flow is an indicator that something else in the business is not going right. Because if it was going amazing, you'd have cash in the bank. So that's sort of how I look at it through my brain.
I can definitely relate to that in the sense of like trying to balance more through my feminine and masculine energy, because I definitely feel like someone who leans more into masculine energy, just day to day feeling busy, always having to do the next thing, always having to do 1% better the next day. And then you know, that's definitely something that I've been more conscious of over the last couple of years of my life, for sure. And being in a relationship too, like especially with Warren's quite like a definitely masculine energy as well. So for me, like being able to balance more of my feminine energy, I find definitely works well relationship wise. So it's something I can definitely relate to personally. Yeah.
I have a little book recommendation actually on that topic. It's the best book I've ever found on that, what you were talking about, that feminine masculine dynamic and how it works in and out of the bedroom. And ironically, it's written by a rabbi, Rabbi Shmuley, and the book is called Kosher Lust. And if you also want a window into how Judaism views sexuality, it's an eye-opener as well. But that articulates it beautifully, what you're alluding to there. My little tip.
Yeah, thank you. So eroticism, let's go into that. What does that really mean?
I would love to, but firstly, when I say the word erotic or eroticism, what do you ladies think of? What comes to your mind?
The first thing that comes to my head, erotic, is like, it's really weird, but I just think of
Isn't it? It's harder to answer than you think.
Well, the first thing that pops into my head is like the extra mile in the bedroom. Like I think of like sex toys or lingerie. That's the first thing that I think of when I think of erotic.
Exploration?
Yeah. I guess so.
What about
the first thing that came to my head? I had almost like a vision of like just like a body, like a woman's body, almost like dancing for a moment. It's just like a flash.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's an interesting answer. So the word erotic, of course, comes from the Greek god Eros, the god of love, lust, sex, desire. And the ancient Greeks used to define it as just the desire to know, and that our sexual urges are actually directly connected to our very life force. So when we talk about eroticism, it's actually the feeling of being alive. You know, if you look at any stats on infidelity, and Esther Perel is definitely the go-to lady if you're interested in that, the number one reason why people will cheat is the feeling of being alive. They're dead and it's making them feel alive. That's what eroticism is. And it's purely in our minds. We can have 100% erotic experience without anything physically happening. It's completely separate to sex. It's the wanting, and it's in our imagination and in our desire. Really, that's the sort of textbook definition, which is funny because it's not what I think most of us think of when you say that word. We go in a very different direction.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful word.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of beauty in sex. Whereas if there's one thing I'd love.
I thought you just said insects then. Like insects.
Oh, sorry.
There's a lot of beauty in sex. And I was thinking spiders and bugs. I'm like, what?
Sorry, in the topic of sex. In the act of
sex.
Of sex. And if there's anything I'd love to see happen is, the shame and the guilt that can often be associated is to take it away and really look at the beauty that's within it. One of my Esther Perel, who I just mentioned, one of my favorite quotes of hers is that sex isn't a thing we do, it's a place we go. And it's really about connection. And I'd also love to redefine what we think of when we talk about sexual health and sexual well-being, because usually when you say sexual health, you think, okay, well, contraception, protecting yourself from disease. And it's so much more multifaceted than that. It's about that personal awareness. It's about being able to communicate to our partners. Are you comfortable communicating your fantasies, your boundaries? It's also just acknowledging that it's a positive life force within ourselves. And the World Association of Sexual Health actually has a declaration of sexual rights that's founded in the universal human rights, and it reaffirms that sexuality is actually an essential aspect of our lives as adults, and it contributes to our overall well-being in our satisfaction. And there's actually lots of studies to show that when we're having sort of chronic relationship problems, that can actually have a huge impact on our immune system. So often, if you've gone to every naturopath, you've gone to the GP, you've checked out everything, and, they're all saying to you, look, there's nothing here. It might be then an opportunity to look at the emotional side of what's happening either, within yourself or within a relationship.
Yes. People often go outside of themselves to seek the answers, right? Rather than looking inwards.
Yeah.
And then focusing on the internal world.
Which is all about
self-connection.
Can I take?
Who's the professional I can see? What can I take? What can I do? Again, in that doing space, that masculine space, compared to going inwards.
Yeah, there was actually a study done on infant monkeys, and we stem from not quite monkeys, but not too far off. And it showed that if they're deprived of touch, they actually don't develop normally, socially, physically, in any way. Touch is actually the most important factor for an infant monkey. And I think we're the same way. It's love, it's touch, it's connection. That's the way humans are built. And sexuality is just one part of that. Yeah.
Obviously they can't do the tests on humans, but I feel like I've read or heard something where it is very, very similar, like for humans, not through testing, but through studying those who have gone without touch, for example, not doing it on purpose necessarily, but yeah, it actually has a huge impact on our relationships later in life, in what our attachment style becomes in our relationship, and it starts to form those patterns about who we attract and all of that, which is probably a whole other topic for another time.
So what does fully embracing your sexual energy look like? I mean, what can that look like for someone?
Again, it's the simple stuff that we talked about before, being creative, getting in nature, exercising, eating well. It's filling your own cup, basically. Put on your own oxygen mask first. That is absolutely step one.
Yeah. And do you have any routines or rituals that you would recommend for people to help with their libido, their spirit, everything we've been discussing?
I can definitely share with you what has worked for me, but I'll say it's definitely a very individual thing. So I wouldn't be prescriptive about it. I can just share what I found for me. For me, number one is meditation. I have a meditation practice that I go through. Try to do it daily. Don't always get there. It's meditation, it's prayer, it's journaling. I've got to get that centered self before I can go out in the world and do what I want to do. And the second of that is just movement, gym, walking, being outside. And I think the third element is play. It's tapping into play. And at the moment, because I have a 2.5-year-old, I get to do that in a fun way with him, where it's drawing, playing games and being silly. But it's just, whatever way you want to do it. But for me at the moment, that's how I connect to play. Because I think if we want to break this down really, really simply, it's all about connection, play, and expression. So how you want to dress, how you want to show up to the world, it's all a part of it. And it's all a part of embracing who we really are.
I find how you want to dress like not an interesting one, but it's something that I personally I catch myself thinking about a lot. I will put on something and then it's not like I judge myself for it, but I ask myself, why am I wearing this? Or why do I want to wear this? Or because, for me, sometimes I'll go to the gym and I'll be wearing Converse, an oversized t-shirt, and I just feel like I'm totally in my masculine energy. And then when I go out, I want to put out a sexy dress on and heels. And I just find it an interesting thing that I've asked myself, just styles of clothing and why I choose to wear what I want to wear.
What's the answer?
100%.
I know. I guess
it's not to do anything with how you look or how you're looking. It's totally about how you're feeling about yourself on that day. I notice that with my underwear choices. If I'm feeling not good about something in my life, it's the granny panties. When I'm feeling good, it's the sexy stuff. That's where I absolutely see it come out. And when the big old it's granny panties come out, I think, what's going on there?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I definitely am a comfort underwear wearer, but I feel like that comes with gym life because this is funny because it is always a personal conversation that I do have with Warren, because I do have some beautiful lingerie that I don't regularly wear because the lacy stuff, it pokes out and you can see it under your active wear. So it's not practical. And I'm trying to explain to him, I can't wear it because you can see it through my tights, or if I put a dress on to go out for a date night, you can see the hot pink lingerie straps, it just doesn't work.
I can't agree with that more. You buy stuff and it's what dress could I wear this under? It's just not going to work.
Exactly. So I don't know. It's more one of those things where you go out and you wear the practical, then you have to get home and then you've got to put it on when you get
the costume change.
Literally.
But when you do wear that stuff, I imagine you're wearing it more for yourself than for him. He might enjoy it. Or maybe that's my own bias in pointing that on you. But for me, that's how it works. I do it because I feel good. And then as a byproduct, the partner hopefully enjoys it.
Debatable. I mean, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy in comfort, to be fair. But no, I just feel even when we were when you were saying about the dresses and wanting to dress a certain way because you feel good, I'm almost the opposite in a sense that I will put on a dress that's quite sexy and I'll love it and I'll be oh, I love this, but then I'll go change it for something that's more I don't want to draw attention, or I just want to be more I'll just wear something that's basically not going to draw any attention because I get worried that people are going to look at me. And I'm the same in the gym. I'll put on a hot pink booty shorts and crop and I love it, and then I'll go and change it, or I'll put an oversized t-shirt on because I'm I don't want people to think something maybe so it's just something that I catch myself constantly thinking about why do I worry about that? I don't know.
Well, it's definitely something worth exploring, but at the same time, if being comfortable is your thing, then do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it. You know, the sexy lingerie isn't for everybody. If you know, you go with your style and what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, you are not in control of what other people think and what, you know, what emotions come up for them, what reactions come up for them.
You have to own that.
And we none of us are. So we just, otherwise we could apply that thinking to anything, right? Anything and everything.
I agree. Yeah.
And
so
it
that's
can
why
permeate and it can be debilitating.
it can. Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting thing to think about. So yeah, sometimes I do catch myself and I go, nah, I want to wear it, so I'm going to wear it. It doesn't matter if someone looks or if someone thinks it's too much, or do you know what I mean? Like, it makes me feel good. I like that I'm wearing it. It makes me feel good. So.
And on this, like on this topic specifically, like the opposite, you could be having the opposite flow and effects. Like you were talking to almost the downsides of what could happen, but what about the positive sides? It could be the complete opposite. Someone sees it and then, for example, might buy the same outfit because they love it and then they feel good wearing it, or they might be inspired to do something different, or like there could be all these other flow and effects that aren't the worst case scenario. They're actually the best case scenario.
It's true.
And Alice, look at the beautiful photos that you post in bikinis and, you know, with your comp prep. Someone looking at those might think, why the hell would she ever wear an oversized shirt when she's got that working with, you know?
It's funny. It takes me courage every time to post one of those on my wall. I have to build myself up, and I'm just like, 3, 2, 1, post. Okay, forget about it. And then I've got to do some educational posts in between. And then let it go down the wall for a while, and then I might post one like a month later, because I do have a lot of photo shoot photos that I don't post because I just think, oh, it might be a bit too sexy, or I mean, but again, that's like my own kind of internal dialogue telling me, like, probably, I don't know what's too sexy. It's individual to everyone, I guess. So
and it's funny what people comment on, because I mean, I have a few photos on my Instagram from my, you know, comp prep days, and it's, some people you'll say, oh, I love it, and other people will go, oh, you're brave to put out that, and other people go, oh, you're a mother, why are you being so risque, and the judgment that comes up.
And no, I was just gonna say, and I feel like that relates back into like just what you're saying, like sexual, like being your, I'm trying to think of the words, like just being authentic to yourself, and exploring that sexual energy without the fear of judgment of other people, you know, because I feel like it is one of those topics that is quite taboo and like very judgy.
Yeah, and even if there's somebody in your life you've been having sex with for years, so often there's so many people are more comfortable having sex than talking about sex, even with that person. So, you know, we were talking about self-awareness, but before, you know, you're mentioning what I'm wearing and why I'm not wearing. I think it's also important to take that self-awareness in the bedroom. Am I holding back? Is there something I'm not sharing? Is there something that the other person's doing I'm not comfortable with, and I don't know how to communicate that? And am I feeling worthy of being desired and being loved? It's just that self-awareness piece is the first start, whether you're on your own or with someone or people in the bedroom. Absolutely.
So, sorry, my question is then, what comes after self-awareness? Like if someone picks something up, they've become self-aware of like whatever it is, then what? Like what's the next step into like evolving?
Play, exploration, keep talking. It's a journey. It's communication. I think the 3 reasons that most people divorce are communication issues, loss of connection and desire, or trust issues. So it's just about having that that journey and growing. There's no right or wrong, but if one person wants to grow and the other doesn't, you've got a mismatch. And I know this stuff sounds so simple, but that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, it really does. But we have come a long way. As a Western, society, there was a time where, let's talk, say, 19th century, where it was felt that, well, women shouldn't masturbate because their clitoris might turn into a penis. And,
wow,
insane things like that. There's the wandering womb theory, where, women's wombs just wandered through their bodies. And the only way to, pin it down was to get them married. And then that made them, sensible, grounded women. So we've had some strange theories in the past, and we have come a long way, but we've still got so far to go. There's still 70 countries in the world today where it's still considered illegal to be gay, and you can be arrested and put in jail for it. So as far as we've come, we've still got so far to go. And I think it just starts with having these conversations.
Why do you think it is that, things have started that way, or that we've had to evolve this far, this long to be at this point that we are now? Like, what are some of the reasons why it started off being such a, I don't know what the word is, restricted?
Like how our views have sort of been shaped?
Yeah.
I mean, firstly, it's a huge multifacet. But for let's say thousands, hundreds of years, and I'm not saying this to denigrate religion in any way, but up until about the 19th century, it was religion that really dictated or was our authority on sex and moral issues. That's where we went to tell us, what do we do, not do, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And at least in our Western world, Christianity has been the dominant religion, and rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying either way, sexuality was seen as something that was only done within marriage and for the procreation, the production of children, and anything outside of that was really, really abnormal. So we've had thousands of years of thinking that way. And that's where a lot of it has stemmed from. And even our laws today have really stemmed from that that religious background that we've all come from. And then we had a bit of a shift in the 19th century where it sort of, that authority was taken away from religion a bit more and put in the hands of, say, the medical world. So instead of talking about perhaps sin, we start talking about perversions and abnormalities, and talking about how masturbation is terrible, and how you had Freud talking about how, well, a woman who has an orgasm because of penetration is a far more valid orgasm than if it was a clitoral orgasm. And we had all these sort of pathological way of looking at sexuality. And then I think we've moved into more the 20th century where we've taken a scientific route. We've tried to study it. We've tried to learn. The first Society of Sexology only started in around, I think, 1913. So, this has only been around for about 100 years. And in this last 100 years, yes, we have come a long way because we've really started to study sex and sex relationships, although it isn't studied near as much as a lot of other elements of, say, psychology is. And it was homosexuality was still deemed a mental disorder until 1973. So the pathway that we're taking now and the leaps ahead, they're really in our lifetime, in our sort of generation. But I like to think our progress in the next few generations is going to be really fast-tracked. Because, today we think of gay marriage as a no-brainer. 50 years ago, it would have been unthinkable. So it's going to be incredible to say, well, in 50 years from now, what's going to be considered normal? I hate that word, but, normal or commonplace.
And where are we headed, do you think, from your experience and what you've been learning?
I think there's going to be, if I take out my crystal ball and I think about sort of maybe what's ahead for us, I think consensual non-monogamy is going to be something that's going to be far more commonplace. Open relationships with boundaries. And just personally, I would love to see the stigma around sex work, if not eradicated, greatly diminished. Even in this day and age, sex workers are greatly discriminated against, even in the healthcare world, even when they're going for loans. Some banks have policies not to give loans to sex workers. There's still a huge stigma around that, and yet it's the sex worker that's stigmatized, not the client. And if we look at pure economics, there's a demand and there's someone willing to meet that supply. So why should there be a problem? And it's work just like any other. So I hope there's a whole lot of advocacy to remove that stigmatization for sex work. That would be my real hope for what's ahead, actually.
I'm interested to know your opinion. I've heard or I've read certain things just about how things like pornography, OnlyFans type things that have evolved and, pornography, I don't know when that kind of evolved, probably a long time ago, but I've heard things in this day and age that result in actually those being negative impacts on people's not overall health, but their connection with people as such. I don't know if you've studied anything around that or if you've heard anything around that before. Probably more so pornography, I guess, is the one that I've heard. I've heard Warren talking about it as well from a male's perspective. Sure. What's your opinion?
That's an excellent and very multifaceted question. So let me just break that down a little bit. First, so if we take the true definition of porn, it's anything that's arousing. So that can be a visual image and it can be words. So if we take that as our definition, is as old as sex itself.
Yeah.
There are dildos we've dug up that are 4,000, 10,000 years old. But I guess it was really, the invention of, say, the stag films and then, the rise of porn films in the 70s that's really come up. That when we say porn today, that's what we really
think and of. I was also thinking maybe the easy access, and that's just there.
And that's what it comes down to. So I think there's a few things. I think porn can be, at least let's talk about mainstream porn that's mainly made for male consumption. It's a lot about instant gratification. Getting turned on, getting it done, moving on. If we go back to our definition of desire, which is wanting and longing and yearning, well, that want for instant gratification is going to kill desire.
Yeah, you're missing that in the equation. Exactly. Yeah.
Especially for the way women's sexuality is designed. It's the old, if you don't heat up the oven, you're going to have something half baked. Women, especially the way we're built. I'll go back to Esther Perel. She says foreplay starts at the end of the last orgasm. And that's totally true. We need to build up and build up and build. And that's how we're built romantically. So if we've got men and women consuming porn especially at an age where they're really impressionable, and they start to think like, oh, this is what sex is, and this is where they're going to miss a huge piece of the puzzle of desire and keeping desire going, and also that goal-orientated element of porn where it's all about the orgasm. Whereas you can have an amazing sexual experience where nobody has an orgasm, because it can be about just connection and intimacy. So there's definitely a place for porn. Have fun with it, do what you please. It can be a great tool to spice things up and put in the bedroom. But I think where it's dangerous is where that's where your first learnings come from about sex, and that's where you learn that, oh, that's what it's about. I mean, and where do we learn? There's nowhere really to learn how to be, say, a great lover. Most of us watching films, reading books, hearing other people's stories. It's not something we're ever educated about, or how to communicate about. We kind of fumble our way through it as adults. So I think there's a place for it. I'm certainly not going to say porn's terrible, because it's not. But anyone going into it's just got to know that it's a script, it's a movie, it's not real. And building anticipation and building distance and longing is actually where the real fire is, not in just the getting it on and getting it done. Yeah.
So I guess like anything, it's just more like the balance of it, really, and what exactly using it for. It
has its place. Yeah, I mean, I was someone, I must say, like, to share a personal story, I had never watched anything ever remotely pornographic before the age of 30. And I will forever be thankful, because it didn't impact how I saw sex. I didn't see any woman being denigrated, degraded, demeaned. I mean, there's a lot of great, beautiful, ethical porn out there as well, but there's also really a lot of nasty stuff too. And I'm just going to be forever thankful that my initial views were never influenced by porn. But in this day and age, with easy access, anyone with a phone has access to porn. So whereas, me as a bit of a dinosaur, wasn't like that.
Back to Alice's point before about OnlyFans as well, and your comment around things being more accessible. So what impact's that having on young men and women, but young men who are maybe consuming, and also maybe women who are putting themselves out there? Like, what effects is that having? And I know it does go the other way as well. Men can be on OnlyFans, and women are the consumers. I understand that.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like the porn debate. They're calling OnlyFans the Tupperware of porn.
There you go.
It's becoming, like the household sort of thing, like the next door chicks getting on the OnlyFans. Again, it can be empowering.
Sure.
It can make a woman feel amazing and hot and desired. At the same time, it can be completely demeaning. And I think it's what it means for you and what you're putting out there. Are you putting out there pictures? Like, Alice, when I see your pictures and your bikinis and everything on Instagram, you're in a strong position. You're presenting yourself in a place of strength and power. You're not in a vulnerable position. So it's also seeing how you're presenting that as well, because I know that's a personal pet peeve of mine. I've worked with some male photographers that will only pose women in very vulnerable. So, they're looking subtle and they've got their legs open and they're just, it's very vulnerable.
And you definitely receive that differently, I guess. Yeah. And look, and also I have, from a personal perspective, I have accounting clients who are OnlyFans creators, and let me tell you, they are making a killing. And I think flipping good on them. They've got a great body, they've got a great look. They say these days OnlyFans creators are more marketers than sex workers, because it's actually the marketing machine that goes on to get the
the people buying the subscriptions. So you can either see the intelligence in what they've created, or you can see it as something very, very demeaning. I think that might be a bit of everyone's going to see that a little bit differently.
I want to share something that Warren actually mentioned to me a couple times, because I just think it's another point of view altogether as well. But his explanation is more to do with, and obviously his is from the male's point of view, females putting on OnlyFans. But I guess his point of view was like males being able to get it so easily whenever they want from anyone they want, that it's changing the way that they actually treat and interact with women, like walking down the street, like, because just being able to see a naked woman like that if you want to, or chat to her here, like you might get so many men that would do that through a thing, but like on the street you would chat to them so differently, you would interact so differently, like you would respect someone in a different way, I guess, when you're really coming into contact with person to person. So his point of view was like there has to be some like impact it's having on men as a whole, in the way that they're seeing women and interacting with women, I guess. So for him, like he was kind of saying like, you know, seeing women on TikTok post about how there's no good men out there these days, or men like just complaining or something. And then his point of view is being like, well, like men these days, you know, don't know how to treat women this way because they're being constantly overloaded with just easy access naked women and getting this so easily. It's a very different approach or very different view of basically seeing women. So I thought that was interesting coming from a male.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Warren's a beautiful soul, and he's got a very valid point about the objectification of women, and that's what porn has historically been. It's making women the object and the passive role. In porn. And if we are growing up, and this might be more something that's relating to the future, if we're growing up with OnlyFans being normalized and that objectification being normalized, perhaps in the future we will see men relating to women in really unhealthy, toxic ways. I think it depends where your initial learnings begin. You know, and also know that like they're essentially playing a character, like it's not real. When you see them on the street, that's the real person, but the photos that they're sharing, that's a caricature. We've really got to separate out a service to a real human being.
Well, that's why I feel like it's more of a to me, when I see it, and this is only my personal thing, it's more of a negative side on the viewing point of view than it is being the consumer, because you're right. I feel like as a consumer, you are being empowered. It is your choice. You're choosing to put this out, but how people consume that is going to be different, I guess.
You can't control.
Yeah, exactly. So that really is what I personally think of when I think of it. But you know, girls who are utilizing today's platforms to be creative and do that, like I'm all for someone who wants to do that.
And you've reminded me of that old adage. You remember how some people, you know, there's a few generations ago, it might be said, oh, you know, women shouldn't dress in a way because then if they get assaulted or raped, well, they must have been asking for it, which of course is total crap. It's all got to do with how the men view how the men are viewing women and their own issues. So I think you can kind of almost relate that to OnlyFans as well. Just because a woman might be posting raunchy material doesn't give men open slather to treat them like an object.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it's not going to die, that's for sure. I think the OnlyFans boom is only going to go.
And it has different levels to it, right? Like I haven't been on there, but it doesn't have to be pornography, does it? It can be people not fully clothed probably, but like almost bikini photos or something like that, right? But it's got different tiers to it, I'm sure. Is that right? And so there would be the highest level where, is it live? I guess I'm asking how it works, but
I don't know if they
be.
do lives, but it can be anywhere from just a sexy girl in a bikini, not too dissimilar to what you'll see on Instagram,
Yeah.
to masturbation videos, to perhaps
Right.
full-on pornography.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. The
Very
world
interesting.
is definitely evolving in so many ways, especially in our time. I feel like there's just been slow evolvement, and then there's just been a boom of like change in our lifetime. That's personally how I feel.
Absolutely. And I think the speed of that's just going to continue going forward as well. And it also, our sexuality changes even over our lives. Like what I'm sitting here saying to you and what the three of us are thinking might be completely different for all three of us in 10 years or 20 years. You know, we're always evolving and growing and changing our minds, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Steph. That's been a big episode. How good.
We've covered a lot of stuff. I feel like I've just thrown a whole, probably opened a whole few cans of worms there, but
keep opening them. It's great. Where can our listeners find you, please?
Okay, so if you want to know a little bit more, feel free to follow me on TikTok, and on Instagram it's at Steph Mellick.
We'll pop that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any final words, Steph, that you wanted to add before we close off today?
I did have a few things. I had a few notes here just to make sure that I didn't miss anything that I really wanted to say. But I guess, like in anything, we grow or we die in all parts of our lives, whether it's in business, in spirituality, in anything. So keep growing, keep learning, keep sharing, just enjoy the journey and have fun. It's almost like, I think the bedroom is like the adult's version of a playground. And that's how perhaps we should look at it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today, Steph.
Thank you,
Absolute
Steph.
pleasure. Thank you for having me and for allowing me to share my thoughts as a student and just a woman of the world who's seen a few things.
I feel like we'll definitely have to get you back on in the future, because I'm sure that your findings and your views and the points are going to evolve as well, and we might even get some specific questions from our listeners as well who might want to ask things. So yeah, we'd love to have you on again in the future and chat a little bit more detail about some of this stuff. But for now, thank you.
I would love to come back anytime. I'd be honored. Thank you very much.
No worries. As always, guys, please don't forget, if you loved today's episode, take a screenshot, share it with your friends. We are growing our Body and Beyond community slowly. So yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
The Body and Beyond podcast is for information purposes only. This podcast does not constitute advice or services, and the statements and views of the hosts and guests are not medical advice. The information provided should not be used for treatment or diagnosis purposes. Please discuss any information from this podcast with your healthcare professional before making any changes to your lifestyle.